Oh.
Hello?
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 Just making sure you're still there. Hello?
Yes?
Can you hear me, Melody?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, I can now.
Yay.
Good morning, Trace.
Good morning, everyone. Kim, thank you for
Hey, Kim. Hey, Kim.
Hi.
thank you for helping on here. I am not able to see who all is on the meeting. It's not, for whatever reason, it's not letting me see that, so I can't.
Yeah, we're having some difficulties this morning that for some reason it's not allowing us to promote the panelists. It's not allowing us to kind of really give the control we normally do. So we're going to try to do our best here. If you have any questions about anybody that's in the meeting, I can try to answer those for you as we go along, or try to make the best out of this as we can, I guess.
All right, I appreciate that.
Who's that?
This is Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe.
Here, I just can't get to my microphone.
All right. So I guess before we call the meeting to order, I'll just ask that if you might possibly have any background noise or some other things going on in the background, that you mute your microphone until you get ready to speak. That way we can all right, how about that?
There we go. Good. Looks like maybe it's starting to work again.
Yeah, looks like it is. So Mike, I'm showing 4 panelists and 28 attendees. Is that what you're seeing?
That's correct, sir. And I'll work on moving the rest of the people to panelists if we can get this to work this morning. It's been giving us some error codes, so I apologize for that that inconvenience.
Oh, no problem. That's not your fault, I'm sure. Okay. All right. Kim, are you on? Can you hear?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order? It's 10:01, September 8th, 2021. This is the Bingo Advisory Committee meeting for the Texas Lottery Commission. We are doing this on a very sketchy Zoom webinar this morning. So I know we may have some background noises going on. If you'd please mute your phone while you're making your morning coffee, we'd appreciate that. Is Will Martin on yet?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can now, sir. Good deal. Would you like to lead us in the American pledge and the Texas pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Will. We do appreciate you doing that every time, and we definitely don't get to tell you thank you enough for that, but we do greatly appreciate that. It does mean a lot to me personally to have that done before every meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right, we got let's go on to roll call. So Veronica.
I'm here. Good
All right.
morning.
Good morning. Kim is here. Grace is here. Corey. Is Corey Harris on?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Excellent, Corey. Emil, are you on? Tommy Duncan, are you on, sir?
Yes, good morning.
All right. Melody's here. And is Jason Pohl on?
Here.
All right. And then, of course, we have Mr. Will Martin. All right. We have a full board today for the Bingo Advisory Committee. So how about that? Good deal. Kim, do you want to go over the meeting minutes from August 13th?
Yes, sir. I looked them over briefly and did not find any problems with them. I make a motion that we approve them as they are for online.
All
Do I have a
right.
s-
We have a motion. Do we have any public comment or committee member comment before we carry that over? All right, so if we've got no comment on the meeting minutes from August 13th, 2021, we have a motion in place to accept them as printed. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting minutes from August 13th have been approved. All right, and here we go. Fun time, guys. Number 6, we got the pull tab work group that I know Mr. Emil has been working very diligently on. I know there's a lot of different opinions on this, so this ought to be interesting. Emil, you want to leave this out, sir?
I can do that if you can hear me.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, our subcommittee was asked to review the pull tab bingo rules regarding our new 2022 work plan. And that work plan requires us to evaluate the impact of COVID-19 on charitable bingo in Texas and to identify potential rule or procedural changes that may help the organization address any related challenges. We sent out notice to the subcommittee members and all manufacturers on Sunday, August the 15th. To that respect, we copied the rules and we gave them the 2 points that we brought up in our BAC meeting that prior to that, number 1 being the Texas seal and number 2 being the more than 2 instant requirements on a bingo event game. And I got comments back from a couple of manufacturers and a couple of distributors. And in a nutshell, from the manufacturer's perspective, removing the Texas seal would not open up any additional inventory to Texas distributors in the short term. We're just not sitting on any non-Texas seal product that would be available for Texas. In the long term, the manufacturers were in agreement that anytime you remove a specific requirement for a pull tab ticket in Texas that doesn't pertain to any other state, you create a unique product, a shorter product run, and we would discourage anything to do that going forward down the road. It would help long-term, but won't be no short-term fixes. Basically, the same is true for removing more than the 2 instant winners. Again, short-term, it's not going to solve any problems, but long-term, going down the road, as manufacturers make product, they can make product that can sell in multiple states, therefore increasing the production runs and moving them further up the priority list in their planning. We did get another suggestion from another manufacturer about removing the prize amounts and number of winners for each prize, et cetera, the cost per ticket, and maybe removing the language about the graphic symbols and then also the image size requirements. That's the unique requirement that both Texas and Minnesota have that keeps the symbol image certain distance away from the die cut edges. And I can tell you NAFTA would oppose changing any of those rules because they're all security measures for the product, and we support those rules as they are. One of the other manufacturers submitted a request to remove the packing slip requirement, and they were not aware that we had already done that about a year ago. So that pretty much sums up all the information I received back from the subcommittee members and the manufacturers. And so bottom line, in the immediate future, there's nothing in the rules that we can foresee that would change, that would open up new product to Texas on the short term.
Emil, this is Trace. You know, you talk about the short term, but you did say in the long term, it could help productivity, or would it help pricing? What would be the benefit of removing it for the long-term basis?
Again, anytime you have to manufacture a specific product for a specific market, you are narrowing the amount of product that's going there. So you're narrowing the production run. And anytime you narrow the production run, you're decreasing the priority of that product getting put on the planning charts at a manufacturer's level. And again, Texas is not the only state that requires a seal. There's one required in New Hampshire. A law passed in New York this past session to require one. They haven't implemented it yet. But there are other markets that require seals. We tell the same thing to those markets. Every time you put a specific requirement for a ticket just for your market, you create a new unique product line, and you're decreasing our ability to run that product to sell in other states, or you're eliminating our ability to sell that product in other states. Therefore, the production run is smaller.
Gotcha. So security wise, and this is going to be some overlap here, I guess, on the Facebook stuff. I've had a couple of people ask me, is it, if we do vote to recommend the seal be taken off, security wise, how would that help or hurt on the are you there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. It clicked, yeah, the screen clicked off on my end. How would it help or hurt the Facebook gaming, the security stuff? That is that a ready identifier that could hurt or help later on down the line? Do you understand what I'm asking? I know that's kind of together, but
I'm going to take a shot at it. Basically, our product is tracked like a car or a gun, make, model, and serial number. And we don't track a serial number like some states do, but we track our product by make, model, and serial number, and we can trace that product back to the distributor we shipped it to with those three items, or even just a serial number in some cases. The seal does nothing to prevent the product from being played on Facebook Live. Does nothing. And there are Texas seal tickets being played on Facebook Live. We've seen them.
yes.
Again, we trace product by the serial number.
You don't think the seal is a do or die item for having it on there or not having it on there to help with
that's a Texas lottery decision. They wanted that on their product. That's why they have it in their rules.
Sure.
But it's certainly not something that the manufacturers encourage any state to do.
Right. So it's not a benefit for security, is what you're saying. I think that's what I hear you saying.
Not from our standpoint. It may make the lottery feel more comfortable, but not from our standpoint. Again, we track by make, model, and serial number.
Okay. I see that.
And one other thing.
Yes, sir.
One other thing, Trace, with regards to removing the 2 instant winners, there was a lot of concern about if the instant winners being removed would somehow make those games interpreted as bingo games and not pull tab bingo games, and therefore subject to the bingo session prize limitations. So there was a lot of caution urged and research to be done by legal before we move in that direction.
Okay. let me circle back to that because I got a question on that too. I noticed that Tyler is on. If I may, Tyler Vance, ask you a question from maybe the lottery standpoint, if you have one yet, whether or not the lottery commission feels as if the Texas seal being on the pull tabs is important enough to maybe get some pushback from if we decide to try to vote to take that off. I think long term it definitely would benefit the tab manufacturers and the industry getting product a little easier. I don't think, I think it'd take 6 months or more to be able to even go through that rulemaking process. But does the lottery have a stance on that, Tyler, that you're aware of?
Well, first, I would caution that I'm just a staff member. I'm not the lottery commission. So this would be coming from you guys as a recommendation to the commissioners to propose this rule, and then the 5 commissioners would be the ones who make this decision. And I assume they would ask me what I think about it, or ask LaDonna what she thinks about it. And speaking for myself, I think the idea is that this thing was included years ago as a tracking mechanism, as something that allowed investigators to be able to quickly ascertain whether or not a pull tab was legal or not. And I think, as we've all discussed, we recognize that there are other ways of doing that, namely shipping logs, purchase logs. That we can pretty easily figure out if a pull tab is illegal or not. Perhaps not as easily as we could with the logo on there, but that's, that just weighs our interest against the industry's interests. Obviously, the manufacturers, it's easier for them to make things with fewer restrictions on them, with fewer requirements on them. So I recognize that. I don't know what the commissioners, what their decision would be. And of course, we have to run all these rules by the governor's office. I don't know what their position on it would be. But as a staff person, I understand that, that the staff's interest in this requirement, is mitigated by the fact that there are other ways to identify illegal pull tabs. And it would obviously benefit the manufacturers and presumably then distributors and charities. Although you guys just mentioned one thing that kind of piqued my ears a little bit, is that it helps when you're watching games on Facebook that you know that it's a Texas ticket because you see a TLC logo on it. So it that could help with the enforcement of Texas illegal bingo activities. That if you guys if you see the TLC logo on Facebook, that that leaked out of a Texas licensed facility at some point. So in that regard, it may be helpful in kind of slowing down this Facebook situation. But
so Tyler, maybe I'm a lay person, and y'all know that I'm kind of big red crayon person. So clear this up for me. You said that if it's a Texas seal on a Facebook Live type deal, that would have had to come from a Texas distributor.
That's not necessarily true.
Yeah, now that I think of it, yeah. So
yeah, I'm asking.
But it's from a Texas facility, a licensee. I mean, it either a Texas licensed manufacturer sold it to this person, a distributor sold it to this person, or a charity sold it, or it was stolen from one of those 3 people. At least that way, we know that when we see that ticket on Facebook, that to some extent a Texas bingo licensee was involved in that, which gives us.
That's not necessarily true. They sell our tickets in other municipalities outside of Texas with the Texas seal on there.
I see. Okay.
Please
And-
forgive the interruption. This is your court reporter. I don't know who just said that's not
Oh, that's
necessarily
Tommy
true.
Duncan. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you wouldn't mind when you do that, if you would state your name for me, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so very much.
Okay, so there's other, so from what I understand, manufacturers sell Texas stamped tickets in other jurisdictions, and that there's no administrative rule or bingo advisor or bingo enabling act violation by them doing that. Is that correct, Tommy?
This is Tommy Duncan. Yeah, as far as I know, I mean, we seen one on Facebook that had our logo on it, and it was sold to a distributor in New York
Okay.
from the manufacturer.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, and I may be completely wrong, this is Trace again. Having the Texas seal on it doesn't necessarily mean it came from Texas. And with the Lottery Commission kind of handcuffed to not being able to go after these unlicensed entities, they don't, it's my understanding they don't have the jurisdiction, which is not their fault. We're seeing Texas tabs in other jurisdictions. So could it possibly mean that the Texas seal really doesn't accomplish what we want it to if it's being sold in other jurisdictions? Anybody?
Well, I've got my hand up. You want me to speak up?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't see who's got their hand up or not.
Okay, this is Emil Burgoyne. For the record, every deal of pull tabs that's being sold on Facebook Live is illegal.
Yep.
Whether it has a Texas seal or not, every deal that's being sold on Facebook Live is illegal. Yes, manufacturers do sell Texas seal product outside of the state of Texas, particularly if a production run died in Texas and we can't no longer sell it in Texas, we'll flush it out somewhere else.
And that's not illegal, right, Emil?
There's nothing to prevent us from doing that, in my opinion, anywhere.
Right.
This is Kim Rogers. I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Tyler, if we go on to Facebook and you see that it's a tab and it's Texas seal, are you saying, I'm sorry, my internet kind of went in and out a little bit. Are you saying that you have assistance to stop those games from going on or do anything about it? Or
No, I just think it's an extra. So the big issue when we get Facebook complaints is do we have jurisdiction?
right?
First of all, we don't know where this thing's happening. We don't know, half the time these people have fake names and stuff. So it's just one more piece of evidence. If we see a Texas seal, we see a name that's on the registry, then I would assume this person stole these from a hall. It's one more piece of evidence that can help us try to track these down. It's not a great piece of evidence. It's not going to immediately lead to us being able to resolve this. But it's just a consideration that, when you guys were mentioning it, I thought, well, that's just another piece of information that we can use to try and track these guys down. I'm not saying that it's necessarily going to result in us tracking them down, or that there aren't, as Emil says, I don't think there's anything wrong with selling Texas pull tabs to another state as long as that state allows them. So there are legal ways in which these things can get out of the state of Texas. And Emil's right, there are no legal ways in which they can be played online. But the fact that they show up online doesn't necessarily mean that a Texas licensee has violated the law. But it is, just from my perspective, it's just another piece of useful information to try to track these down. But these cases are kind of so nebulous that, just because we see a TLC logo on Facebook, that by itself isn't going to solve anything.
Right. So it doesn't stop it. And you are correct. All the ones I've seen, they have fake names. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tyler, this is Melody Green. And I've seen these pull tabs for sale on Amazon. At Amazon, I just put in pull tabs for sale, and there were several pull tabs that I cannot even get anymore, and they were for sale on Amazon, and they were for sale on other websites. So they're not even. So you said, I guess somebody did steal it somehow, but not necessarily the charity worker doing it. But you can go on Amazon and buy pull tabs, and they'll deliver them to your house. The same ones we used to sell.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying this is a do or die factor. I just think it's one more thing to consider in whether or not you guys want to recommend leaving the seal or taking it out. There are obviously advantages to taking it out for the industry. And there are some disadvantages, and it's just a matter of whether the commissioners think those advantages outweigh the disadvantages.
Thank you, Tyler. We appreciate that. This is Trace once again. Just old East Texas redneck speaking here. If the seal is on the pull tabs, in my opinion, if the seal is on there for a security purpose to make sure that the tabs that the halls are using in Texas are Texas tabs, I think historically the commission and the industry were both worried in the early days of the pull tabs. I think the intent was to try to make sure we didn't have tabs in Texas that were not Texas legal tabs. That's where the state seal came on, and that's why we used it. I think in this day and age, any hall operators or charities themselves that are, actively running a bingo hall, I think the compliance is probably going to be close to 100% on getting legal Texas stamped pull tabs. I'm going to go out on a limb there and say it's probably close to 100%. So if the Texas tabs are being sold in other jurisdictions with the stamp on it, I personally don't really see the need to have a Texas stamp on the tabs that we use. If they were only being sold in Texas, and that was the complete identifier for a Texas legal tab, I could understand leaving it on there. But if it's being sold in New York and Arizona and Florida and everywhere else, I really can't fathom recommending keeping the Texas seal on the pull tab itself if it's being sold in other jurisdictions. It defeats the purpose. And if that's what makes it harder for the manufacturers to get pull tabs to the state of Texas, even in the long run, just as a matter of prudence, I would say, what do we need it for?
And Trace, if I could add something, this is Corey Harris.
Yeah,
I'm right there along with you. If we have the seals on the tabs for security purposes, we had established the last time we all met that there's really no enforcement of these securities. There's no entity that's investigating or attempting to police these things. So security against what is my main question. I mean, if they serve a security purpose, what security and who's enforcing that security? If nobody is, then it's just an extra step, and it's to this point causing us a log jam in our supply chain.
I think that pretty much sums up how I'm looking at it as well. And I know that's a practical matter, and I look at it practically. But I was told, if we do try to remove the seal, and Tyler, this may be a question for you. If there's a tab, like I'm just going to use an example here. If there's a tab that already has a Texas seal on it and the rule does get repealed, does that tab have to go through a resubmission process, or is it going to be kind of like a rubber stamp and go, hey, look, this was the same tab, there's no changes except they're taking the seal off, rubber stamp this through? Or is it going to be a complete process to go all the way back through?
No, we could grandfather any previously approved tab, provided that nothing else changed except for the removal of the seal would remain approved.
Excellent. Excellent. That's wonderful.
Trace, Emil has his hand raised.
Okay. Emil?
Yes, Trey.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. What I wanted to point out is a huge difference of printing that Texas seal on each and every ticket than printing that seal on the flare that has to be posted in plain sight of the players. We could use those same deals in every other state. And for Texas, it's not that difficult to put a seal on just the flare. The problem is on each and every ticket. If you understand, we box those deals up, and we could take Texas flares and put on them, and then take Minnesota flares and put on them, or take Louisiana flares and put on them. They may have their seal on the flare. Big difference putting the seal on every ticket versus just the flare for the game.
Gotcha. I completely understand that. And I don't have any issues with that at all either. Tommy, do you agree with Emil on that?
I agree that it's not going to help us right now. I don't know that, this is Tommy Duncan, I don't know that it'll really help long term, because in normal times, we weren't having delivery problems to begin with. We're in these uncertain times, and it's not going to help us right now. But we also got to consider, if you take the seal off, what's to say people don't start flooding product in to these bingo halls and people quit being compliant. Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do follow what you're saying. That's a good point, Tommy. It's a real good point. And I think, and I can't speak for everyone, but and maybe this would be a question for Tyler, maybe. Are there a lot of instances where halls are using illegal pull tabs in the hall?
Not that I'm aware of, but we haven't conducted in-person inspections in well over a year now. So, but historically, I don't know that it's that big of a problem. But maybe that's because it's so easy to get caught. If you don't have a Texas seal on it, that those things stand out like a sore thumb.
You have a point there.
I have a question. This is Veronica.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Tommy, this is probably for you or Emil. In other states, are they having, prior to COVID, are they having other illegal pull tabs sold in those states, or how is that addressed? I mean, is it a huge issue of the distributor buying them from somewhere they're not supposed to, or the charity buying them from somewhere they're not supposed to?
Well, this is Tommy Duncan. I'm going to let Emil jump on that, but I will just say not all states are as regulated as we are. And I believe there was a case in Mississippi where they caught the bingo hall selling illegal products. So, but what's to stop the charities in Texas from buying online? Like Melody said, if we don't need the seal, and you don't record it, who would ever know?
Well, this is Melody again. A lot of these products you can buy online do have the Texas seal on them.
But I'm saying there's got to be some out there that don't as well.
Right.
This is Kim Rogers.
This is
In my opinion, if there's a hall or a person out there that's going to purchase tabs illegally, they're going to do it whether it has a seal on it or not. So that hall, you still have the rules that you must purchase from a licensed distributor, correct? So, I mean, you can still trace it by that. Just because it does or does not have the seal on it, it's not going to stop someone who, in my opinion, that's all.
Well, and Kim, this is Trace, and you know, to the point about pull tabs not having the seal on it, you know, you can buy Texas printed bingo paper as well. You know, it's not that hard to buy Texas paper outside of Texas, so I'm being told. So, you know, and once you get through the audit process, I think the lottery commission is, you know, good enough to be able to tell if they're using illegal paper or illegal pull tabs. I think
Absolutely.
they're doing a fine job during their audit process to go through the ins and outs and pick up on that stuff.
Absolutely. Let me just say, in any audit that I've been a part of, you have to prove where you bought the event tabs, pull tabs. You have to have serial numbers. You have to have your log in order. I mean, that doesn't, whether it had the seal or not, they're going to know because they also contact your distributor that you bought it from.
Yes. Yeah, the sales and the inventory, you know, just, it wouldn't match up. And I think that we may be over talking this a little bit and maybe over scrutinizing it or looking under a microscope at it, if you will. But what I would like to do, and just the concerns for time, I would like to come back to this work group, give everybody an opportunity to think about some of the points we've made today, and maybe at the next in-person meeting, maybe possibly be ready to take a vote on whether or not to ask for the removal of the seal or not. Does anybody have any heartburn about that?
No.
No, I'm okay with that.
I'm fine.
Yes, that's right. That's
Fine.
Fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. All right, Emil, we're gonna put you on for next time around, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you, you know, back and forth. And then if we do feel like we're gonna ask the commission to remove the seal, that'll give, you know, Tyler and the staff time to draft things, and, you know, run it up the flagpole at the governor's office, and, you know, give everybody a little bit more time to get their ducks in a row, so to speak.
Trace, it's Emil. Again, I would recommend that we move the seal from the tickets to the flare, as opposed to eliminating it altogether. It still might give the lottery some feel good, if you will.
And I really like that idea as well. I really like that idea. So let's all take some time on that and kind of think about it and roll it around. And we will revisit this at the next BAC meeting to maybe kind of work with staff a little bit, see how they're feeling about it, and amongst ourselves as well. I know it's hard on a Zoom call to get everybody's 2 cents worth, if you will. And I don't want to leave anybody out on this. So we'll take this back up at the next BAC meeting. Is there any public comment that we need to have on this work group? Public aren't allowed, my bad. Sorry. Okay, well, we're not going to have a call to action on this one this time, so we'll skip on down to number 7, temporary submittal on the bingo service portal. And this is Miss Kim Rogers' work group. Kim, take it away.
Good morning, Kim Rogers here. A while back, and I don't know the exact date, quite a few people in the industry noticed that if you were just an operator, designated representative, designated operator, you were not allowed to apply for temporaries. This issue came up in trying to figure out what happened. We formed a work group at the last meeting, and I got with Tyler Vance to ask, when did this come about? What's the rule, etc. The rule is 402.400, if any of y'all want to pull that up. And the way I read it states that officers, directors, operators, and authorized representatives are allowed to file an application. So when I talked to Tyler, he let me know that in the past, people have been able to apply for this, yet on the paper form, Form 16, it was a little different. So they tried to make them both be the same. How about if that's the wordage, if I'm gonna, put them in line to be together and request the same person to sign. The paper form requires 2 signatures. Your BSP's doesn't do that, and we don't want it to. But if you have only officers or directors, so right now it's limited to officers, directors, I believe, and chairperson, which your chairperson has to be an officer or director anyway. Those are the only ones that can apply for a temporary. In speaking with Veronica, we completely agree that what we need to change is probably the paper Form 16 to only require 1 signature. Therefore, it's in line with the BSP. And we think, so members, we're asking y'all's opinion. We think that officers, directors, bookkeeper, and operator. So the only one we're adding to the rule is bookkeeper, is who we should ask the commissioners to be able to sign for these. And I would like anyone, members, if you'd like to comment on that.
This is Trace. Kim, I have a question. Are the bookkeepers allowed to be operators?
Yes, sir. As far as I know, yes, they are.
Okay, and
The only rule for an operator is that they must be a member of the organization.
Okay. So if a bookkeeper is an operator, then that's
good point. Good point. Yeah. Then it's a moot point putting the bookkeeper on there. So as it sits right now, the way I read it, Veronica, I ask you, officers, directors, and operators should be able to apply for a temporary online, correct?
I'm no lawyer, but that's the way I see it. And yes. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so Tyler, can you explain to us why? I understand, and I've said, y'all tried to put it in line with the paper form, but why can an operator not apply for a temporary any longer?
So the law on this is in the statute. It's in 2001-103, and it says, so there's another section on normal licenses, like an annual license, and an annual license under the law specifically requires certain people to fill it out. A temporary license under the law is submitted, quote, on a form prescribed by the commission. So there are no explicit requirements for what's on a temporary license form. It's totally up to the commission. And what happened in this case is that historically, the commission has decided that the paper form had to be signed by both a chairperson and then an officer, director, or designated director. And at some point years ago, former bingo director allowed for other folks, operators and bookkeepers, to submit requests on BSP. And so it was brought to my attention a couple months ago that there were two different standards. And so I said, well, just go to whatever the paper form requires those to make sure BSP requires the same thing. I don't want two different standards for the same application. And part of the discussion we had, I asked why does the paper form require these things? And they said, well, the idea that it was discussed years ago that they wanted a chairperson to sign it to ensure that the organization was more involved in the use of their license, was more aware of their organization's request of temporary licenses. So that's why it was set up the way it is, the paper one. Whether or not that's necessary is open for debate, and it's certainly not required. The law allows the commission to prescribe the form however they see fit. So if the commissioners decided that they wanted to allow bookkeepers to sign this, then that would be fine legally.
Okay.
But yeah, there is the consideration of to what extent do we want to allow auxiliary folks to apply for licenses. As Trace points out, it's pretty common, or I don't know if it's common, but it's common amongst the larger organizations to have their bookkeepers put as designated operators, designated directors, so that they can sign these things. But even then, you still need a chairperson's signature. So that only solves half of the problem, if you see this as a problem.
So I have a question for you. The rule that you sent me, 402.400, that was changed when you told them to make it all the same? Because it lists operators as able to apply for a temporary.
Yeah. So it says for purposes of the subsection, which is general license provisions, it says an individual shall be recognized as an applicant or the licensee's authorized representative only if they filed with commission a form prescribed identifying them as listed as a director, officer, or operator, or an authorized representative. So, this is really splitting hairs here, but this rule, and this is what I initially sent you when you asked me what law applied here. This rule is saying that we'll accept the submission from these people. These are the people we'll talk to in regards to a license application. It doesn't necessarily mean that, these are the people who are going to be granted an application. That the license form is more specific. So these are general provisions of licensing and communication between licensees, applicants, and the agency. Whereas the issue here is that the temporary license application form itself specifically requires only the chairperson, officer, or director. So it's the form itself is more narrow than this rule is. But that's, again, the commission decides what the form says, so that the form could be made more general. It could be made to allow for directors, officers, or operators. But this rule is more of a general guideline for our communication, our interactions with licensees and their representatives, who among the licensees that the agency will discuss things with, will accept things from. But as far as actually requesting and granting a temporary license, the form 16, specifically requires the chairperson and the officer, director, or operator.
If I may, real quick, this is Trace again. So when this got changed, and maybe my brain's just not working, but when this got changed, I don't remember this in a meeting. Did I miss that meeting completely? I mean, did this go through the like rule change process, or was this just an administrative deal that was just done? And
I think this was just an administrative deal. It sounds like Michael Farrell may have done it. And I don't remember him asking me about it. Like I said, there's nothing legally wrong with opening it up. But I think there's something legally wrong with having the form require one thing and BSP require another. So when that was brought to my attention, I said, well, we're going to go with go with the form. That's the more strict one. So that's apparently what the commission wanted. That's the way it was before it was changed.
Tyler, I don't know what I don't really know the process of things like that. So like when something like that is changed, is there a notice sent out, or is it on an email blast, or, hey, listen, we're changing this, or is it on the website, or how do the organizations get notified of changes like that?
Sure. So it's kind of a unique thing in administrative law. It's not really a rule, so it's not subject to the Administrative Procedures Act. It doesn't require public notice or anything like that. It's just kind of like an internal process change. When the law says as prescribed by the commission, typically that allows the director to take that action unilaterally.
Right, and I'm not questioning the authority of the Lottery Commission in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
Well, I guess more what I'm asking is, how do the organizations know that change has happened?
That should have been accompanied by an email blast, or at least a header or something. But it's
Right.
not subject to the Administrative Procedures Act, where it needs to be formally noticed and proposed and adopted. It's considered like a day-to-day administration of the agency that the agency has kind of immediate discretion over.
Sure. I think, and I don't remember if there was an email blast sent out on this to, let people know, hey, this is changing. In the case of temporary, a lot of times it's kind of a last minute thing that we're rushing to go do. And we've got to go get signatures and everything. And if something changes midstream, without the industry knowing it, it can kind of flip over a few rocks with people that are trying to do things on a time schedule. And then if something changes and they're not aware of it, it does kind of, get those people a little upset, and rightfully so. If something changes and they're not made aware of it, it kind of upsets them a little bit. And Kim, did you get an email blast about this, or anybody? I don't deal with this very often, so I don't know if an email blast was sent out or not.
This is Veronica, and I can tell you I did not. And I was actually in the process of getting temporary licenses, and I had to call Alice Banks, and she had to inform me of the way it was changed. I do have a question, just so I understand everything. We started the BSP, or the BSPs kicked in, and we started using it. And then the temporaries were added to be able to do them online. Was it Mike Farrell that decided that we were able to only have one signature at that point? Is that
that's my understanding of the situation? Okay. Yeah, is that somebody requested with him to make it easier to do it on BSP, and he said, sure, go for it.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. All right.
So, and to answer your question, Trace, no, not to my knowledge did we ever receive anything like that. And when you have an organization that's trying to do everything accordingly, to be perfect with all the rules and regulations that we have, you are correct. Being thrown this is a huge curveball that, it's difficult to try. When you're a bookkeeper or an operator, you've given all of your information. You've had a background check. The lottery has everything on you. So there should not be, I don't think, a reason why an operator or bookkeeper cannot apply for a temporary. And still 402-400 says operators can, yet on the BSP today, you cannot. So
are you recommending a rule change?
I am recommending that we ask the commissioners that on the BSP, officers, directors, and I think we should list bookkeepers, because some may not be operators, and operators should be allowed to apply for temporaries.
This is Veronica. I also have a question, I guess. Operators are allowed or are not allowed to print temporary licenses? Tyler, I guess that's for you.
They're allowed to print them. So we made that rule change last year in the rule review to allow operators and I believe bookkeepers to go online and print the license, but not apply for them.
Okay. Tyler, and this is just an opinion question. And I see what you were trying to do here by, making the 2 pages the same color crayon, if you will. I like crayons. I get that. I totally understand it. Do you think there's a security risk or a negative impact that it would, maybe affect security or something by doing it with just the one person, like what Kim's asking? Is there a negative side to doing that?
Well, the security risk again is going to be that, right now it requires a signature of 2 people. So at least 2 people in the organization need to be aware of this and need to sign off on it. So even if you just took that down to 1, whether it be the
I'm
chairperson.
sorry, that's incorrect because you can do it with 1 person online. So it's not 2 people are not aware of it.
Okay, well, the paper form requires 2 signatures. And so in my mind, although I'm not currently the director anymore, so in my mind, the paper and the online should be the same. If the paper requires something, there's no reason the online should require less. That just seems kind of arbitrary to me. So the paper requires 2 signatures. So taking it down to 1 signature, even if that one person is a bona fide member, an officer or whatever, again, it's but you could take this the other way too. Should we have 4 people sign it? I mean, how many people need to be involved in this? The general idea again is that we want the organization to be aware of their use of temporary licenses, and you can make a reasonable argument that a bookkeeper is so involved in the organization's day-to-day operations and is so trusted that it's perfectly fine to allow just a bookkeeper to sign off on it. You could make a reasonable argument that maybe every officer of the charity needs to sign off on it. It's just a matter of what, as a policy matter, what amount of involvement by bona fide members of the charity do you want to ensure that the charity knows what's going on with its license?
Tyler, has there been a lot of instances where charities were unaware of themselves playing temporaries and somebody did something that wasn't legal or inappropriate with the money from a temporary session?
I don't know anything specifically, but just anecdotally when I was talking about this with the staff members, they said years ago that was an issue. They had a few enforcement cases where the charities would come in and they'd say, oh, we didn't even know that, we had all these temporary occasions. And so that was kind of the idea back then. The reason it got shifted to require 2 signatures was because they were seeing cases with, any number of problems, but it got revealed in a lot of those cases that in addition to the other problems they had, it was just in general, the charities weren't that involved in general. And so this was, I think, seen as one more avenue to get the charities more directly involved in supervising their bingo activity.
I have a question, please, Tyler. Do the emails still go out when you apply for a temporary and a temporary is approved? Is there not an email that goes out to the chairperson?
I think there is. Yeah, I think that's correct.
So your chairperson, Trace, is always notified, whether it be the bookkeeper, operator, director, or officer that applies for a temporary, they're always notified.
This is Veronica. Yes, I'm going to second that. That is correct.
Okay.
So to take the stance that a charity didn't know, well, what's your chairperson doing? You follow me?
Yeah, I do now. Okay. So if I understand this correct, what you're saying, Kim, is that if a bookkeeper applies for a license, signs it, sends it off, gets the temporary license, in the process of approval that an email is generated from the Lottery Commission and it goes to the chairperson who is not the bookkeeper. So you're basically nailing down two different people of, hey, here's the catch. Y'all are applying for this. Is that what I'm understanding, Kim?
Yes, as far as I know, that's still happening.
Is it common for the bookkeeper to be the bingo chairperson?
Not that I know of. Maybe Tyler could answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, the chairperson's got to be a bona fide member of the organization. It's not uncommon for the bookkeeper to be a designated operator or a designated director or officer, but you can't be a designated chairperson.
This
Okay.
is Veronica. Yes, a chairperson in some instances are the bookkeeper as well.
Yeah, so if you were, let's say you're, a bingo hall that's truly ran by the charity, like let's say, I don't know, a VFW hall where everybody that works in that place is a VFW member, then the bookkeeper would also be a bona fide member. You can't, you can make any organization can make anybody a designated member for the purposes of the bingo license. So if the bookkeeper, like I couldn't be a member of the VFW because I didn't serve in a combat role in a foreign operating theater. But if I worked as a bookkeeper for the VFW, they could make me a designated operator or director, but they couldn't make me their chairperson. You'd have to be an actual member of the VFW in order to be the chairperson.
Gotcha. Okay.
However, this is Veronica. However, in a organization that has just a regular 501c3, for example, they can appoint somebody to be their bingo chairperson, and they can also be the bookkeeper if the organization's that small enough.
Yeah,
But I have seen that. And then I have another question, I guess. I think this is also the case, back to Kim's information about the chairperson gets an email. I do think that even if it's not a chairperson, if it's a director that applies for it, it does go to, or if it's a chairperson that applies for the temporary, it does go to a second member in the email group. It doesn't have to be just the chairperson. Is that correct, Tyler?
I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But we could set this. We could set this thing up in any way to to notify whomever.
Sure. I get where the staff is coming from on this, Tyler. I really, really do, and I kind of like it when there's more than one person involved. I personally don't like it where it's just one person. But if they're getting emails on the back end that's not the same person, I also understand that. The thing that really concerns me the most is when changes are made and the organizations aren't really notified, and the only way they find out about it is midway through a process. Is there a better way that we could get updates or maybe notifications on little changes like that? And it may seem kind of little or not a big deal, but I think that's something that we would definitely like to know when there's administrative changes made on stuff like that. That's to me, that would be the probably the one of the bigger fixes to things like this is if people just don't know.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I'll apologize for this because this was my decision, and I didn't think to put out an email blast on it. It was just one decision and 50 that I made on some Wednesday morning or something.
Well, hey, if that's the worst thing you ever do, Tyler, I think we're gonna be A-okay.
But yes, this should have been communicated. I don't know if Michael Farrell communicated when he did it, but yeah, I agree. A change on a form like this, especially a form that's commonly used, should definitely be publicized ahead of time and discussed ahead of time. The decision that was given to me is that, I had these two forms that were completely different, and I
Sure.
just said, just make them the same,
And
but yeah, I
to be
certainly
honest-
should have publicized that.
To be honest, Tyler, I would have done the same thing you did. I would have just said, make them the same. I would have done it. So no fault there. We just kind of want to make sure that we're all on the same page and working together from here on out, I guess, because I'll tell you, Tyler, you did a fantastic job with the cauldron of mess that you got thrown in your lap. So we're definitely appreciative of what you did and how well you handled it. That's for darn sure.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So Kim, do you have I know I asked you this earlier, but is there something you want to do on this, or do you want to wait and think about it? This is your work group. Give us some direction here. Kim, are you there?
This is Veronica. I know she had to leave, but she said she was going to stay on till 11:15. So I think she
Okay.
might have already left. So I recommend that we just let her, let's say we're going to think about it, because I've been talking to her about this. So I'll just reach out to her and let her know that we're just going to wait on this, and we'll talk about it amongst ourselves. Oh, there you
So
are.
sorry, I'm back. My computer just went completely out, but it's back now.
All
But I
right.
missed everything that y'all spoke about. So you want to postpone and not change anything at this time?
What I'm asking you is what you want to do on your work group. Do you want to have some more conversation about this? Do you want to propose something?
Well, I believe what Tyler
Basically-
was trying to tell me was that we need to, yes, propose something, get the BAC members' opinion, and if y'all want to make a motion. I think we should ask that, and if we need to go to the commissioners to ask them at the next meeting when you go, that officers, directors, bookkeepers, and operators, and make both forms the same. Make the BSP is one of them, one of those 4 positions can apply for a temporary, and make the form that one of those or 2 of those 4 would submit on Form 16. Veronica, was that also your idea?
Yes, that I agree with you.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this correct, Kim. This is Trace. You want to make it to where just one person can file for the temporary licenses. However, on the back end of that, there's going to be more than one person at the organization getting an email, and it won't be that same person. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the BSP only requires one person to do it because, of course, it's online.
Mhm.
So you log into your portal and you do it. If Tyler and staff believe that the paper should stay 2 signatures because that goes back to the BEA, then I still think it should be it should be 2 of those 4.
Yeah, there's no requirements whatsoever in the BEA of who has to sign this thing. So this is just a pure policy decision. And I think that if only one person needs to sign on BSP, I think it ought to be one person that signs the paper too. Like I said, there really shouldn't be 2 different standards for the same application.
Agreed.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay. So you're making a motion that we petition the lottery to,
And this is Veronica. If I can also interject, Kim, did you want to add the bookkeeper to that list as well? Is that what I'm understanding?
I would like to make a motion that we petition the commissioners for an organization to apply for a temporary license, it only requires the signature of an officer or a director or a bookkeeper or an operator on the BSP or Form 16. I also believe you might have to include Form 17 in that, but I'm not positive.
But with
Chairperson.
one signature, you're still getting those multiple emails on the back end to where there's more than one person that the organization is aware of. And I guess where I'm going with that is I don't really have
Yes.
a problem personally with one person filing for the approval of temporary licenses, as long as that one person is not the only person in the organization that knows that's going on.
And Trace, I completely agree with you, but I think that would be something that we would ask staff to do versus putting in or changing any type of rule or anything like that. But yes, requesting that staff, when a temporary is approved by a bookkeeper, a officer or director or operator is notified, someone else within the organization.
This is Veronica. I would say applied for, not approved.
Okay, applied for, exactly. And Melody, I don't know that we would have to list the chairperson because your chairperson has to be an officer or director.
That's
Am
true.
I correct, Tyler?
That's correct. Yeah.
Or they could send the email to the chairperson. That way they wouldn't have to be searching for officers, directors, or operators. If they, the chairperson's the one in charge of bingo, correct?
Correct. I think the targets would be the chairperson and the designated agent, which might be the chairperson, but sometimes it's not. But
Correct.
those are the two people we have on file to contact.
Right. Then you can tell them when something's been applied for or changed.
Absolutely. The organization, more than one person, exactly like when you do your inventory, more than one person needs to be involved in it so everyone knows what's going on. So yes, sir. Trace, that is what the motion we would like to bring up for the BAC.
Okay, and do we have a second for that motion?
It's
This
Will
is-
Martin, I'll second it.
All right, we got a second by Will Martin. All right, all in favor of asking the commissioners and staff to make these changes that Kim has just talked about, and we will get this all in writing here after the meeting, I'm sure. But all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All
Thank you.
right. Well, since we don't have public comment on this meeting, we'll move on to number 8, old business. Corey, you had a work group that you were working on that we did not actually get to put on the agenda today. I know it's short notice because it wasn't on the agenda, but do you have anything on your work group you'd like to report about?
Yeah, good morning, Trace. Yeah, this is Corey Harris. I wasn't prepared at this meeting. I thought we were going to go over that when we met again in person. I'm in Colorado this week,
Okay.
so I'm operating remotely. So if it's okay with you and the committee, can we just add that to our agenda, and I'll be ready for that on the next meeting?
That sounds like a plan, sir.
Okay.
And that was our fault, my fault for not putting you on the agenda this go around. So blame lies here.
Well, I don't think there's any blame necessary. We'll just go ahead and tack it on to the other one, and we'll talk about it next time.
All right, sounds good. Any other old business that needs to be discussed? All right, moving on. Number 9, new business. Is there anybody that's got anything new that we need to address?
Trace, this is Tyler Vance. I want to bring up, we're going to propose 3 rules at the next commission meeting. And part of the BAC's mission is to advise the commission on any rule proposals. So we're going to run these by you. You'll have a paper copy at the next meeting, but I'll go ahead and read them for you. Normally on a substantive rule, we present these to you months at a time so you could debate this and consider it. These amendments are all cleanup. They're instances in which our rules conflict with the statute, so we need to change them, and there's there's nothing to debate about them. They're relatively straightforward. So I'll go ahead. Rule 402.413 is for military applicants for licenses. And the legislature this session amended the definition of armed forces of the United States to include the Space Force. Our rule does not have the Space Force in it, so we'll be amending that rule to include the Space Force.
All right.
Rule 402.452 applies to the calculation of net proceeds for a 2-year license. Right now, our rule has two different standards. It uses, the first year of a 2-year license is based on the start date and the anniversary date. And the second year evaluation is based on the anniversary date and then the end date. And so the end date is the day before the anniversary date. And this has raised some issues when accounting and audit gets into looking at net proceeds. Well, if you look at the statute uses only the anniversary date in both instances. So we need to change that rule to make it clear that net proceeds for a 2-year license will always be referencing the anniversary date of the license for the calculation. And then the other changes in 402.702, this is the disciplinary action section. And so it provides that when we propose denying an application, so let's say you have a criminal history issue and we send a notice that says, you've got an issue, but here's your chance to provide letters of recommendation or anything else. Our current rule allows 20 days to provide that information, but Chapter 53 of the Texas Occupations Code, which governs this, allows for 30 days. And so we've changed that on our letters. The letters that go out give people 30 days, but our rule still says 20 days, so we need to correct that.
Excellent.
And so those 3 will be going up in October, and I'll get a copy of that, I or LaDonna, to all of you guys to look at the next BAC meeting. And then you'll be expected, Trace, to make some comment on it at the next commission meeting.
Absolutely. Not a problem. Thank you for the heads up on that. And I hope that those help you in the future. They sound like they're pretty open and shut deals. Is there any other new business? Okay. Since we don't have public comment for new business, let's sneak on over to item number 10. How about that?
Trace, I believe we set the date for our next meeting to be October 20th at 10 a.m. in Austin, in-person meeting, just for your information.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. I was looking for it in my paper right here, and you beat me to it. All right, so Tyler, are we still good for that? And I'm just now able to see who the attendees are on the call today. I do see Commissioner Fields is on the call today. I don't know why that just popped up, but Commissioner Fields, is there anything that you would like to talk about or impart to us? Wanted to give you the opportunity to talk if you'd like to.
Yeah, thanks, Trace. I really, morning, everyone. I don't have anything, just hiding here.
Okay, all right. Well, you're certainly welcome, and we're definitely glad you joined us. It's certainly a pleasure to know that the commissioners are paying attention to what we do. We definitely appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so we're scheduled for the next meeting, October 20th at 10 a.m. Tyler, is that still good with y'all on the staff front?
Yes, it is, as far as I know.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Excellent. All righty. Well, we will adjourn the meeting, and I will see y'all soon. And I'm sure there'll be quite a few emails rolling around out there.
Bye, everybody. This is Veronica.
Thank you. This is Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.
Well, have a great day, everybody. Be well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Adios.